into high-velocity innovation heroes. He was named by Business Week magazine as a leading source for innovation and creativity insight, while his observations are frequently covered in Fortune magazine. So he's praised by clients, whether it's the Disney Corporation or the Wirtz Beverage Company, and he is guaranteed to help you start preparing for tomorrow today. So please join me in welcoming Jim Carroll to the stage.
I spoke at 2 events in Las Vegas last week, because about 90% of what I do is throughout the US. And I was looking at the audience at one of them. I was at Caesar's Palace, and it was the 8:30 a.m. keynote slot for the 3rd day of a retail conference. And I'm looking at the audience, and I'm thinking, I got a really weird job. What I do for a living is I go out and I talk to large groups of hungover people. Essentially, you're looking kind of well. This isn't the same type of thing. Watching that Canadian video, now I'm based in Mississauga, watching that Canadian video, you notice the phrase diversity and tolerance. And I think we need to be doubly proud of the fact that we are one of the most diverse and tolerant countries on the planet. And with that, I'm going to do something which I've never done on stage before. I think we should all take a knee, because I think what we are witnessing south of the border is absolutely edging on the bizarre. And when it comes to manufacturing, we live in a tremendously challenging time. I mean, we have an administration that if they try to pursue what they want to pursue with NAFTA, which makes absolutely no sense, it could have a profound impact on the Canadian manufacturing sector. Which makes it all the more important that in this country, that we focus on ingesting the fast-paced trends which are redefining the world of manufacturing, which are providing us opportunity, and that's what I want to focus on today. Now, I speak at a lot of different events, a lot of different conferences. I'm off to Chicago this afternoon, where I've got a presentation tomorrow morning for the 1-800 industry, the toll-free industry. I'm in Washington on Wednesday, talking to a bunch of accountants about the future of their industry. Regardless of whom I'm speaking to, I start every single presentation with 3 trends, 3 statistics, 3 observations which bring you into my world. And that is a world of absolutely relentless, furious rates of change. The very first statistic comes from a study that was done in Australia. They were looking at the education system. They were looking at the future of careers. They were looking at the future of what is happening with jobs. And buried away in this report was a staggering statistic. And you might have heard this because it's become a bit of an internet meme. Buried away in this report was a suggestion that 65% of children who are in preschool today will work in a job or career that does not yet exist. Think about that. 7 out of 10 kids today are likely to work in a job or career we don't even yet know what that is, but you know what we do, because these jobs and careers are emerging around us at a furious speed. And they're emerging throughout the world of manufacturing. They're emerging in every single aspect of our lives. And let me give you an example of a career that has become very important and that has emerged over the last 10 or 15 years, which we might not be thinking about. Let's start here. How many of you today carry around a cell phone? Show of hands. Smartphone. Everybody's got a smartphone, right? You know, there's actually a study done in the US. It indicated your social standing today is very much dependent upon the technology you carry around. In other words, if you go to a party and you take out a flip phone, people are kind of looking at, what a loser, you got something from the olden days, right? We're judged by the tech that we have. But think about what has happened, because we've got a smartphone in our pocket, we've got GPS in our pockets. And we've had the emergence of all this spatial, S-P-A-T-I-A-L, all this geographic-oriented information. And because of that, we've had the emergence of a profession of people known as location intelligence professionals. You can Google that phrase. These are individuals working in supply chain, working in logistics, they're working in healthcare, they're working in insurance. We suddenly have the ability to examine and analyze and make business decisions based upon very discrete units of location-based information. This career that didn't exist 15 years ago, and it's accelerating in a furious degree. Second observation. It said if you're taking any type of degree today based on science, so healthcare, architecture, engineering, anything having to do with mechanical engineering, the world of manufacturing, it's estimated that half of what you learn in the very first year of a college or a university program, half of that knowledge is obsolete or revised by the time you graduate 3 years later. We live in a period of time of absolutely instant knowledge obsolescence. New knowledge arriving at a furious speed, old knowledge becoming out of date and irrelevant faster than ever before. And a lot of this is being driven by the technology whirlwind that we find ourselves in today. A couple of weeks, I'm over in Tokyo actually with Nikon, not Canon, but I was with this organization a couple of years ago. And I was talking to the CEO, this is about 5 years ago, talking to the CEO before I went on stage. And he indicated to me when they bring the typical digital camera to market. This is back in the olden days, 5 years ago, when we actually used to buy cameras. You notice we don't even buy cameras anymore? Cameras are from the olden days. But he indicated, because we're using our phones to take all our pictures, but he indicated when they bring the typical digital camera to market, he thinks they've got about 3 to 6 months to sell it before it's obsolete. One of the biggest challenges in the world of manufacturing today is the products that we are bringing to market can be obsolete before they hit the stores. And that's why my favorite phrase comes from the global media magnate Rupert Murdoch, who observed years ago, if you think about what is going on, there is so much change. It's coming at us from so many different directions. It is so overwhelming, it is so over-encompassing, that increasingly it's not history, it's not legacy, it's not what we've done in the past which defines our future success. It's our speed, it's our agility, it's our flexibility, it's our ability to ingest and turn into opportunity fast-paced trends. And one thing I always like to do with an audience is ask you, well, how do you think you're doing with this issue of speed? And so I'm going to put to you a question. When it comes to this fast-paced future, how well do you think you are prepared? Here's how you participate. Take out your smartphones. We're going to do a little text message poll. It's okay, if you got a flip phone, take it out, just hold it under the table so nobody sees. You'll live in shame. And what you do to participate is you send a text to the number 37607. If you think you are extremely well positioned for success, punch into the body of the message 107461. Or punch in one of these other options. And I'll tell you 2 little stories while you vote. Again, you send your text to 37607. I was down in Texas a couple of years ago. I was with the Texas Credit Union League. I had 600 CEOs for credit unions, large and small, from throughout the great state of Texas in the room. And I'm on stage, I'm looking out in the room, the average age seemed to be about 65 plus. And I could see a whole bunch of these fellows going, I don't know how to text. Do you know how to text? My grandkids want me to text. What do we do here? And out of this room, 600 CEOs, 3 people managed to get in a vote. And think about disruption in the world of banking. Think about what Apple has done here. Apple has turned this into a credit card. What has happened in the world of banking is Apple is defining the future of the credit card industry. And here I've got a room full of bankers who barely know how to use the technology, which is going to cause so much change to their industry. Contrast that, a couple of weeks later, I went into my son's high school down in Cawthra Park in Mississauga. And I walked out on stage, they brought 300 kids into the auditorium. And I said, we're going to do a little poll here, take out your phones. 297 out of 300 kids responded in the first 30 seconds. That's the next manufacturing engineer coming into your factory today. They are wired for speed. Their entire worldview is shaped by the mobile device that they carry around. So how are we doing with this issue of speed? I've been up here 5 minutes and I get freaked out already. We've got 82% of the room that believe they're only somewhat positioned for success. We're behind in our ability to keep up. I'm absolutely terrified, a small percentage, we're toast, it's way too fast. And I look at this, extremely well positioned for success. I know who these folks are. These are people in sales. They got up this morning, looked in the mirror, it's gonna be a great day. I'm gonna have a whole bunch of potential clients in the room. I'm gonna close a deal. They've been relentlessly positive, from the very start. So this is where I spend my time. I spend my time with a fascinating range of organizations. From Disney to the PGA of America to ESPN, The Gap. All of these situations involve senior executives who are trying to understand what do we do to deal in a world in which change is happening faster than ever before. What do we do in a world in which the future belongs to those who are fast? A few years ago, I was sitting in the home office, Monday morning, the phone rings, and it's NASA on the line. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration is on the phone asking if I could come in and talk to them about the future of space. And I remember looking at my wife and going, it's NASA on the line. And you want me to talk about what the future of space? They said, Jim, we found you on the internet. We've watched some of your videos. We've read some of your stuff. We think it's kind of fascinating, your viewpoints on innovation. We would like you to come in and talk to us about the future of space. I said, well, okay, who's going to be in the room? And they said, well, we're going to have some astrophysicists, we're going to have some astronauts, we're going to have the head of the ISS, we're going to have people who are building spacecraft that voyage to the heavens, but we would like you to come in and talk to us about the future of space. Well, I've never wanted to turn down a good opportunity, so I said yes. And it's about a week before, I got to start pulling together my PowerPoint presentation. And I kind of freaking myself out because, I think these are astrophysicists. These are people who are studying the origins of the universe. These people are way smarter than I am. What can I possibly talk to them about in terms of the future of space? And I'm thinking to myself, the future, space, George Jetson. There's a connection. There's an obvious kind of future, space, George Jetson. So I dug out these pictures of George Jetson and opened my presentation with them. Well, why would I talk about George Jetson? Do you remember this TV show? It came out in 1962. It purported to show what the world would look like in the year 2062, 100 years later. It was a prediction of the future. But think about what's going on in this cartoon show from 1962. George is using Skype. George is using FaceTime. George is getting his news off an internet-like device. And my point for NASA was this. We thought this stuff from the Jetsons would be here in the year 2062, but it is arriving here early. The future is coming at us with greater speed. And maybe the first thing we need to do to prepare for the future is recognize it's going to happen faster. So I'm thinking to myself, this is a good introduction, build a little bit of a relationship with the astronauts and the astrophysicists and people in the room. It's going to get a good start. And then I'm thinking to myself, look, how many times am I going to be invited in to speak to NASA in my lifetime? Probably not a lot. I got one shot at this. There's no way that I'm going into NASA and not putting up a picture of Spock. I got to talk about Spock. So I found this picture of Spock and I put up and started talking about Spock. Are there Trekkies in the room? We know you're out there. But apparently this is the wrong photo from the wrong episode. And the first time I used this photo on stage, they all collectively freaked out because apparently this is the wrong photo from the wrong episode and they get really religiously defensive about Spock. But I'm going to stick with the photo because the story is what is important. What he is holding in his hands here in this episode is a medical tricorder. Fantastic little concept from the 23rd century. A little device that he could hold next to the head of a human or an alien and get an instant physiological reading of their healthcare condition. Get a view back into healthcare conditions they've had in the past, or a view forward into healthcare conditions they might develop one day in the future. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we had a medical tricorder in our lives? Wouldn't it be fantastic if we had technology from the 23rd century in our healthcare system? Well, the thing is, we live in the era of the Global X Prize Foundation. The X Prize is a global initiative challenging the global scientific community. Look, if you can solve some of the biggest problems of our time, having to do with education, the environment, water, energy, healthcare, we will award you a prize. And Qualcomm, which manufactures computer chips, put together a $10 million prize. If you can develop a medical tricorder, if you can develop a device that somebody can hold to their head, and if it can do 13 physiological measurements, we will award you $10 million. The reason I brought this up for NASA is I became aware during a conversation with their leadership team that they did not know that out at NASA's Ames Research Laboratory in California, a group of 45 NASA scientists got together and decided to pursue the $10 million prize. An unofficial project. They went out to Kickstarter to raise the funds to develop the Xanadu Scout, the medical tricorder of the 23rd century, which I hold in my hands here right now. This working prototype, I can turn it on, it will Bluetooth tether to my phone, I can hold it to my head, and this will take my blood pressure, will take my pulse, will run an EKG of my heart, will take my oxygen level, and future versions will do a glucose test and other physiological measurements. This wasn't supposed to be here until the 23rd century, and it's here today. We live in a period of time in which change is coming at us at an absolutely staggering pace. We live in a period of time in which it is becoming increasingly difficult to judge when this change is going to happen. But we know that it's big. Bill Gates once observed that, we tend to overestimate how much change will occur on a 2-year basis. We underestimate how much change will occur on a 10-year basis. Do we think the world of manufacturing is going to look anything like in 10 years what it looks like today? Well, what I've come to realize is what is really going on in the world today is the Jetsons is arriving 50 years early. Once I finished my NASA presentation, I decided I got to watch the show. I mean, these folks were onto something. So I went out and I downloaded the entire series, and I started watching the Jetsons from show number 1 through the entire episode. And my kids came home from college. Dad's sitting in the couch watching the Jetsons. What are you doing, Dad? Business research, guys. Trust me. This is important. But you know what's absolutely fascinating when you go through the show? What they predicted, what they had right, self-driving flying cars. It's all over the show. Self-driving technology is a part of the Jetsons. There's actually an episode where Elroy, the son, is sitting on the living room floor and he's flying around a drone with the little drone controller, just like the Phantom drone technology is a part of our life today. There's an episode where they actually have an Apple iPad as part of the show. There's actually an episode where they predicted the Apple Watch, where they're actually holding an Apple Watch. There's an episode where they have the automated Internet of Things kitchen of the future. I was with the CEO of Maytag and Whirlpool a couple of months ago, talking about the future of the kitchen, talking about the future of appliances, talking about the era of connectivity in which appliances become intelligent and smart and connected. And what we were talking about, in essence, was the kitchen as seen in the Jetsons television show. What's fascinating, they actually predicted Snapchat. There's an episode where Jane is changing her mask. What's really funny here? Anybody under the age of 25 got the joke because they're on Snapchat, and everybody over the age of 40, what? I don't get it. But it's kind of fascinating when you go through the show to see what they have right. The reality is that the future is coming at us with staggering speed. Oh my God, look at that. I'm in Canada, I can talk about politics. This is the current US political scene. What I realized, what's really going on in the US? The Jetsons. There was actually a TV show called The Jetsons versus the Flintstones. And here's the Jetsons from the 21st century, and here's the Flintstones from prehistoric times. And we have a country that wants to go back to coal and wants to, put up walls around the country to prevent, goods from around the world from coming in. We live in an absolutely staggering, fascinating period of time. And I think the biggest challenge for Canadian manufacturing going forward is the uncertainty that this is giving us in a world of massive political uncertainty and change. So let's ask ourselves this question. Let's try another little poll. Do we think our business model going forward in the future is going to be the same in 10 years as it is today? Or do we think it's going to have undergone substantial change? Again, send a text to 37607 if you think it's going to be just the same. Punch in 109276 or one of the other options. And I'll tell you another little story while you're voting. You might have gone to a conference sometime in the last 5 years, 10 years, and when you walked in the back of the room, they handed you a little polling technology stick. Do you remember that? It was like a little TV remote control. It had 4 buttons on it. And we could do this polling in a conference. That technology was a hardware-based solution. And to outfit a room like this, the hardware costs probably about $30,000. That technology is now old, dead, obsolete, in the dustbin of history. So all I'm doing is I'm using a service in the cloud and I'm using the technology you have in your pocket. And look what we're thinking in the room. None of us believe that the future is going to be anything like it has been in the past. We think we are in for substantive, transformative, disruptive change. And that's why we're all here. We're all trying to discover what is the pathway to the future. And what I want to do is I want to share with you that pathway in terms of the significant trends which are taking us forward. I want to put some context on the trends which are changing everything we do in the world of manufacturing, and which is providing both opportunity and challenge as we go forward. 20 trends which are changing our world. Number one, we are in a period of time in which there are a whole bunch of trends coming together all at once, which are accelerating the rate of change. Artificial intelligence, 3D printing, the Internet of Things, virtual reality, augmented reality. There's robotics, there's so much coming together all at once. And when we combine these trends together, what we get is an acceleration in the rate of change. The automotive sector is critical to the Canadian manufacturing economy. And think about what is happening in terms of how quickly self-driving cars and self-driving trucks are coming about because of the arrival in the intersection of all these trends. I was speaking at a trucking conference in Phoenix a couple of months ago, and the CEO of the American Trucking Association got on stage, and he said, I used to think that self-driving trucks were 25 years away. I've lowered my estimate. I believe it's 5 years away or less. And all of a sudden, every single automotive company on the planet is realizing that there is an acceleration of the trends which are redefining their future. I've just been booked to come down to Mercedes-Benz headquarters in the US in Detroit in November for a session on the future of autonomous vehicles and where are we really going in terms of self-driving technology and what do we need to do to accelerate our skills, our capabilities, our technologies, and to compete in the race. And Mercedes has said that they are going to spend $1 billion to try to catch up to Tesla Motors. Were we even thinking about this 10 years ago in terms of the rate of change which is unfolding? Part of what is happening here is in every single industry, every single company is becoming a software company. What is happening is technology is the story, is the driver of change in every single industry. Think about what's happening in the world of insurance. Think about what happens when we put a GPS device in a car. And suddenly we can underwrite your insurance policy, not based on past driving behavior, but based on real-time GPS information provided to us by that new career, the location intelligent professional. All of a sudden we can monitor your performance. Are you accelerating too much? Are you stopping at stop signs? Are you slowing down when you should? And if you're showing good driving behavior, we'll give you a reduced rate in your insurance. Think of what happens to life insurance in the world of the medical tricorder, and suddenly a life insurance company can look at Jim Carroll's blood pressure on stage. I'm probably running about 115/70 right now. Despite my speed, we've actually done this on stage. Think about what happens in the world of life insurance, where we can underwrite you based on real-time information. Think about what happens when we digitize the factory. Think about what happens when we bring the Internet of Things and massive connectivity with sensors throughout our assembly process. And we suddenly have advanced diagnostic and prognostic capability to understand where we are having quality defects in real time, or where we have better granular insight into the performance of our line. Everything changes when we hyper-connect everything throughout our factory. What happens here is every company becomes a computer company, as every company becomes a software company. Moore's law comes to define the speed of change. Now, Moore's law is the law that the processing power of a computer chip doubles every 18 months, and the cost cuts in half. It's defined the future of the computer revolution, that we keep getting these devices which are more powerful all the time at a lower cost. This is coming into every single industry. If you've been to Pittsburgh, you've seen the Uber self-driving cars, and they have a little spinny thing on the top called LiDAR, a very specialized form of radar that operates on a local basis, examining where are the other cars, where is the road, where are their buildings, where are their humans. The cost for LiDAR is following the path of Moore's law with that exponential cost drop. It used to cost $70,000, down to $250, down to $90. Look, in a couple of years, we're going to be able to go into Dollarama and buy a $1 LiDAR component and build our own little self-driving go-kart. It's probably not a joke. And what this is doing, along with a whole bunch of other technologies, is accelerating the rate of change, because Moore's law comes to define the future. What happens with these trends is business model disruption. You all know what's happening with Amazon and Whole Foods. You all know that we are transitioning the world of retail to a world in which we are doing more and more shopping online. And fundamental massive business model disruption is occurring in very significant ways. It's happening already in the world of manufacturing, where there's an Uber for 3D printing, where I can conceive a product, use my CAD/CAM software, I can design it, and I can send it to 3Discovered, and they will line me up with an existing 3D printer manufacturing capability to get my product done and printed. We are witnessing furious rates of change in a cooperative economy, where people who have certain skills and capabilities and technologies provide those skills and capabilities and technologies to other individuals. What this is doing is leading to a fundamental change in the way that we conceive, the manner by which we design, the manner by which we develop new products, new ideas, the manner by which we bring these products and new ideas to market. 3D printing is at the heart of so much of what we do. We are transitioning from a world in which we batch and cut and drill metal to a world in which we can print on demand. We are in a world in which we can conceive products in new and different ways, where we can accelerate the rate of change. I was with a company called Parker Hannifin. Parker Hannifin is in the hydraulics industry. A lot of the hydraulics used throughout our manufacturing facility, hydraulics used in trucks and jets. And I was talking to the head of R&D, and he said, back in the olden days when our scientists were not connected, the world of hydraulic science tended to move along at a fairly slow and steady pace. Our researchers would go to the occasional conference. They would read the occasional peer-reviewed journal. Hydraulic science didn't evolve too quickly. And he said the holy grail for a hydraulic engineer is what we call regenerative technology. That is, how do we capture excess energy in a hydraulic system so it can be reused later? Same type of thing we're doing in some vehicles. He said that science didn't happen fast, and then the internet came along, and all of our engineers plugged in. And all of a sudden they're in this big global idea machine in which they can share ideas faster than ever before. And the science of hydraulics, and the discovery of new ideas, and the discovery of new capabilities and methodologies began to exponentiate. Because we now have this world of collaborative creativity. We are in a world in which the science itself is exponentiating. When we plug everybody together, we are in a world in which, for example, in the world of medical and healthcare, the volume of medical knowledge is now doubling every 8 years, and that number is decreasing. We're in a world in which what is happening, because science itself is exponentiating, is we're getting better at doing things which transform entire industries. The projected cost of a lithium-ion battery is following that same exponential cost curve. I was speaking out in Huntington Beach, California, last week for 500 utility executives about the future of the grid. And what is at the heart of the future of the grid in an era of renewables, wind, solar, biogas, is battery storage technology, where we are talking to the utility sector about building 24-hour solar power plants. 24-hour solar power plants? Duh! The sun's only up 12 hours a day. What's that all about? Well, because battery technology lets us store that energy from solar into very sophisticated battery storage farms and reuse and feed it into the grid later during the night when it is most needed. I actually wrote a blog post a couple of weeks ago and wrote that basically the future of just about everything is found in batteries. Remember that scene from The Graduate? Remember that scene where the fellow is saying the future in 1967, one word, plastics. The future of just about everything right now, one word, batteries. Because batteries are at the heart of energy. They're at the heart of electric vehicles. They are at the heart of so many industries. And if we're getting this type of exponential cost curve collapse in terms of what we can do with battery storage technology, we're on the path of a significant trend. We're in a world in which there's a lot of tinkering, a world in which there's a lot of backyard innovation. We are in a world in which entire industries are discovering that a guy or a lady in their garage is doing the innovation which is changing the future of their industries. I was with a company called Hunter Industries. Hunter Industries has had a very long, successful run in the lawn irrigation business. Sprinkler systems for commercial, industrial, residential lawns. Think about the business. We have a sprinkler head, we have some pipes in the ground, and we have a centralized control box with a rule that says turn on the water every morning at 4 a.m. And along comes somebody and looks at the world of the Internet of Things and said, wouldn't it be cool if we could develop a technology that every single sprinkler head were individually addressable via an iPad? Wouldn't it be cool if every single sprinkler head had a soil moisture detection device that could feed in that information? And wouldn't it be cool if we could develop an algorithm that did water irrigation based on smart analysis instead of some simple plan? And along comes somebody with a green box technology, goes out to Kickstarter, raises the funds to develop the technology in their backyard garage. And all of a sudden you have an organization like Hunter Industries who sits back and goes, whoa, somebody just redefined our entire future. Why didn't we think of that? They didn't think of that because they weren't watching what was happening with edge-based innovation. What is happening in this tinkering economy is that suddenly we can conceive products in new and different ways. I was golfing a couple of months ago with a fellow member at my home club at Credit Valley, and he's taking out a wedge, and this wedge looks a little bit different. I said, tell me about your wedge. He's actually 3D printing a wedge. He designs, he ships it to a 3D printer manufacturer, they ship him a prototype, he takes it out, tries it out, tinkers with it, redesigns it, sends it back, and gets another version. Gary Wolgar is in the room here today. Have a conversation, stand up, Gary, have a conversation with him afterwards. You know, and what is happening here is a fundamental change in how we conceive and design products. It used to be we had to design a product, we'd commit to the production run, we would create and manufacture 1 million of them. And we are now in this world of an iterative design process where we can design, we can test, we can change, redesign, retest, rechange. And suddenly challenging on a fundamental level our entire design process. We're in a world in which we have the emergence of entire sites and companies and capabilities such as SmartQuote by which we can do this iterative design process. Do you know what this is doing? Is it's leading to a fascinating dichotomy in the economy where increasingly small organizations are coming to define the future success and the future path of big organizations. Think about the world of credit cards. If you are a small business and if you ever accepted Visa, MasterCard, American Express, you know that the process of setting yourself up as a merchant with your bank to accept credit cards in the 1990s and the 2000s was a very difficult process. It was worse than applying for a loan. It was a staggeringly complex process. And all of a sudden, a small organization in San Francisco comes out called Square. And they come out with a little device that you plug into your iPhone and you press a few buttons, and all of a sudden, you can accept credit cards on your iPhone. And all of a sudden, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Diners Club realize that their entire future is now being determined by a small organization in San Francisco. There are so many industries where small organizations are defining the future of the big organizations. Take a whole bunch of trends, put them together, what happens? Time collapses. You know, wander around the show floor and take a look at what is going on with 3D printing. And think about where we are headed. I dug out one staggering statistic. I was with a manufacturing company, his CEO and his team, down in Connecticut in August. And dug out this study which indicated that what used to take 11 and a half hours with one particular type of 3D printing technology can now take as little as 6.5 minutes or less. What we are witnessing is an absolute acceleration in capabilities. This is all happening in the context in which all of a sudden everything is becoming smart. All of a sudden in which, we have the emergence of home-based devices like the Amazon Echo that we can talk to. I was actually with a credit union and they were showing the demonstration where somebody could sit in their living room and check the balance of their checking account and apply for a loan and move money from one fund to another fund, all by talking to a device in their home. All by utilizing advanced capabilities. We know AI. We know that advanced intelligent capabilities are coming to the manufacturing process in terms of what we can do with robotics. We know that what is happening with robots is they're becoming cobots, cooperative robots, where they have advanced intelligence and insight into how they can work with other robots. And they're getting better spatial awareness, better spatial capabilities. We can move from 2-axis to 4-axis, 6-axis, 8-axis, 10-axis. The very technologies which are changing what we can do are becoming aware. You know, one of the most fascinating trends that all of this leads to is this is happening in the context in which the life cycle of a product begins to collapse. Here's a fascinating statistic. 60% of Apple's revenue comes from products that didn't exist 4 years ago. 60%, 6 out of $10, comes from products that didn't exist 4 years ago. Now ask yourself, in your manufacturing organization, could you reinvent your product line? Could you innovate fast enough? And could you develop so much agility and flexibility in your manufacturing process that you could bring new product to market faster than ever before? Can you meet the increased demands that are occurring as products last longer and become obsolete faster than ever before? Can you do that in the context in which the products that you are bringing to market are going to be hyper-connected? We know that the Internet of Things is not only going to change what we are doing with digitization of the factory, we know it is changing the essence of the products that we are bringing to market. Now look, the Internet of Things could get a little weird, could get out of hand. Look, maybe one morning I'll get up, I'll get on my weigh scale, it's going to send an email to my fridge, don't let Jim in today, he's not living up to, and then it's going to contact my insurance company and cut off my wellness coverage, right? Like, it could get a little weird. But you know what happens here when we put connectivity into a product is the very essence of that product changes. When I was with Whirlpool and Maytag, we were talking about the Maytag repairman. Remember the Maytag repairman? He or she would show up at your door with a box of tools and would fix your washer and dryer. Well, 2 years ago, our washer had a problem. It wasn't running correctly. We called the Maytag repairman. He came to the door. He didn't have a box of tools. He had a laptop. And he came in and he basically reprogrammed the PROM inside the machine to get it working. All of a sudden, that appliance has become a computer. And what we are doing now is we are connecting that computer to the internet with the Internet of Things. Look, Whirlpool and Maytag knows that they are no longer an appliance company. They know that they happen to be a computer company with highly connected, intelligent devices that happen to wash your dishes and wash your clothes and cook your food. And they know that this leads us into a world of prognostic diagnostics where they can predict when a particular breakdown is going to occur. As with Volvo and Mack trucks, the typical truck today is putting off 7 gigabytes of data a week. A lot of that data has to do with engine performance. What Volvo and Mack trucks has built in is a lot of prognostic diagnostic capabilities so that they know when a particular component of the truck is going to break down. And if they're selling you a fleet of trucks and you're a fleet manager, they're no longer selling you a fleet of trucks. They're selling you service uptime guarantees. Because they can predict when a particular truck is going to break down and have you call it in for maintenance before you send it out in a long haul where it's going to break down in the deserts of Arizona. Fundamentally changes their business model. We're witnessing a lot of manufacturers who are realizing what we need to do is we need to challenge ourselves to do things in a different way. We need to have more agility, flexibility in terms of what we do and how we do it. There is a Magna plant in Graz, Austria, where they have built so much flexibility in their manufacturing process, they can bring down a BMW, the next vehicle is a Fiat, the next vehicle is a Mercedes. There are manufacturing organizations who are focused on agility. How do we challenge ourselves to do things in a new and different way? I was with a patio furniture manufacturer in Alabama a few years ago. And this was a family-run company. They had a great run, 100-year run. And then China emerged, and the world went flat. And they had to compete on price. They couldn't keep up. And they were close to shutting down. What do? They decided we are going to focus on flexibility and agility as a manufacturer. And they built a lot of intelligent capabilities in their system. And he was telling the story that they got a call from Walmart one day. The Walmart buyer in January admitted we didn't order 60,000 patio swings. Somebody screwed up from our Chinese supplier. Can you help us? And he said they began to crunch the numbers. They geared up their ERP. They managed their supply chain, and they got product to market within 27 days of the phone call. They built in so much agility and flexibility, they suddenly found a new level playing field when it came to competition. I'm dealing with organizations who realize that when the world gets flat, put a ripple in it. Part of the challenge of manufacturing is we're forced to compete on price. Let's not compete on price. When I'm in Tokyo in a couple of weeks, I'm with a bunch of opticians from around the world. What are they faced with? They are faced with a world of low-cost Chinese spectacles and lenses. Let's not compete on price. Let's compete on the quality and the vision solution that we can provide. And I spent some time with a company called Saddle Slow North America, whose entire concept was let's move the grinding machine out into the optician so they can provide a better vision solution and premium price it so they're not forced to compete on price. When the world gets flat, put a ripple in it. And then there's the gamer generation. Part of the really not fun thing about what is happening in the world of manufacturing is a whole bunch of kids who play Xbox are becoming engineers, and they're coming into the world of manufacturing. The gaming generation is absolutely fascinating. My kids are 22 and 24. Judy, I'm about 5 minutes to close. 22 and 24. They've never known a world barely without an Xbox. You know what's so fascinating about the gaming generation? They had a League of Legends competition in the Los Angeles Coliseum.